Exposed. The incredible transformation my daughter-in-law created in my home while I was away. Tom Johnson stood at the threshold of his cluttered living room, his heart heavy with memories. Just weeks ago, he had returned from his beloved wife's funeral to an empty house that echoed with laughter now silenced. As he took a deep breath, he felt the cold chill of loneliness creep through every corner, whispering reminders of what once was. Overstuffed chairs sat idle. The mantel displayed family photos, all a vivid montage of joy that warred with the emptiness surrounding him. After a long day spent drifting through rooms filled with remnants of his past, Tom turned the handle to his front door. He wasn't prepared for what lay inside. As the door creaked open, a flood of vibrant color assaulted his senses. Fresh paint bathed the walls in cheerful hues, the clutter was tidied up into neat piles, and the old rug he'd walked on for years was replaced with a bright, expansive one that sparkled like new. His chest tightened. "What the hell?" he muttered, stepping inside with a mix of confusion and indignation. This was his home, not a staged showroom. He felt like an intruder in a space that used to be a sanctuary, now transformed without his consent. As he absorbed the changes, it became clear. His daughter-in-law Sarah had taken matters into her own hands. Tom's heart raced. Why couldn't she let him grieve in peace? He chuckled, though it was bitter. 40 years he'd spent working with his hands, building a life, and now here was Sarah, painting over it like it never existed. "Hey Tom." Surprise. Sarah's voice rang with misplaced cheer. "What do you think?" He swallowed hard, fury rising up like bile. "Think? You turned my home inside out without even asking." "What do you mean surprise?" Her smile faltered, replaced by an expression of hurt. "I just wanted to help. I thought help? Or take over?" He shouted, the words spilling out raw and unfiltered. Tom felt his heart race. This was not just about the paint. This was about loss, pride, and the widening gap that had sprung between them. He turned away, barely able to mask the ache tightening his chest. The silence was deafening. Before they could continue, the world outside plunged into chaos. A fierce winter storm swept through, turning everything white. Snow piled high, wind howled, and the power flickered out, engulfing their home in darkness. Tom and Sarah exchanged a glance. "Let us check on the neighbors," he said. The icy bite of reality crashing into their previous storm of conflict. Together they braved the elements, pulling on snow gear and setting out into the howling winds. As their feet crunched in the fresh snow, the initial tension faded. Only a shared mission remained. They found Mrs. Henderson, an elderly widow, struggling with her fallen fence. They dug together, laughter breaking through the cold air as they shared stories. They assisted families with kids, ensuring everyone was warm and safe. In the soft glow of streetlights reflecting on the snow, Tom looked at Sarah, and in that moment of shared effort, his heart warmed. Each shovel of snow unearthed not just obstacles, but pathways to understanding. Was it possible she was trying to help? As the storm raged on, they found a rhythm in the chaos. For the first time in a long time, Tom felt the stirrings of connection. Could this be the start of something new? A bridge over the chasm of pride and misunderstanding he had built so tall? The wind howled around them as Tom and Sarah trudged back home. Cheeks flushed from the cold and hearts unexpectedly lighter. Inside their house was a different world, still warm from the hours spent helping others. The flickering candlelight gave the painted walls a cozy glow, making the medium of Sarah's transformation feel less like an affront and more like a new chapter waiting to be written. Tom dropped his gear by the door, his heart still racing from the mix of cold air and the thrill of community spirit. "You did all this?" he asked almost sheepishly, as he moved into the living room, still brimming with color. Sarah looked at him, a hint of hope growing in her voice. "I thought it would help bring life back into the house." With a sigh, Tom's defenses softened. "I know you meant well. It's hard to see things change." "I understand." She folded her arms, searching his face. "After losing Mom, I wanted to help, a distraction, a fresh start. Maybe for us both." He studied her expression, feeling a flicker of regret for how he had reacted. There was fear behind her bravado, a fear of losing memories, of fading ties, just like he had. For the first time he saw not a rival, but someone grappling with the same pain, trying to hold the family together. The walls of his heart began to crack, and a faint whisper inside urged him to let her in. "Your mom, she loved this house," he confessed softly. I thought if I kept everything as it was, I'd keep her with me. A tear slipped from Sarah's eye, tracing a gentle path down her cheek. Me too. I thought if I could fill this space with life, it wouldn't feel so empty anymore. I just didn't go about it the right way. Unsure how to encapsulate his thoughts, Tom stepped closer. Sarah, I never considered it from your angle. It just felt intrusive. She nodded, eyes glistening. I didn't mean to push you away or disrespect your memories. It was selfish. I thought we could create something new together, remember her by moving forward. In that moment, an unspoken pact formed between them. The storm outside raged, but inside warmth blossomed. They stood before the mantel, the familiar photographs whispering stories of joy and love. Perhaps this transformation could be something they both cherished, a way to honor the past while embracing the uncertain future. Tom breathed deeply, the air alive with possibilities. Let us figure out how to blend your touches with mine. This can still feel like home. A smile broke across Sarah's face like the first rays of sunlight after a storm, illuminating the room. Really? You mean it? Yeah. Just go easy on the colors, alright? He teased, his own smile echoing hers as laughter bubbled between them. The warmth in the room surged, washing over all the unexpressed fears. They were no longer adversaries but allies, each step a small revolution against the grief that had tried to confine them. But just as they settled into this newfound bond, a loud crack echoed outside. Startled, they rushed to the window, only to see a massive tree branch crashing down less than a yard from their front porch. With uncertainty laying heavy in the air, Tom and Sarah exchanged worried glances, the sudden jolt pulling them from their moment of joy. What lay ahead seemed less clear now. An avalanche of adjustments and decisions loomed just beyond their reconciliation. Do you think the storm is getting worse? Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. Tom nodded, a tight knot forming in his stomach. It looks like it. We might need to brace for more than just snow tonight. Behind them, the house, vibrant with new life, buzzed with the promise of possibility. Could it withstand what was to come? In the heart of the raging storm, Tom and Sarah shared a sense of unease as the winds whipped around their home. The fierce crackle of electricity in the air felt charged with tension. It was as if the storm echoed their own swirling feelings, both apprehensive and hopeful. I'll check the generator, Tom said, breaking the heavy silence. He could hear the distant roar of the wind and the rhythmic pounding of the snow against the walls. Sarah nodded, bit her lip, and gave a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. They were trying to regain their footing, but the world outside loomed larger than they expected as Tom ventured into the basement. The low light cast shadows that danced across the walls, revealing storage boxes stacked haphazardly. Memories of childhood summer days spent exploring those very corners flooded his mind. He grabbed the flashlight, its beam cutting through the dimness. The vacuum of silence was interrupted only by the erratic beats of raging elements outside. In moments of solitude, nostalgia can strike hard. It was supposed to be a safe haven, filled with laughter and love, but it was also a cavern of grief. Tom clenched the flashlight tighter, the weight of his memories intertwining with those of Sarah's joyful renovations above. Why had he been so resistant? He flipped the generator switch, and it rumbled to life, shaking him out of his reverie. It was strange but liberating to think that they could both hold the past and create something new together. The flickering light brightened the dark corners, illuminating the path that lay ahead. Meanwhile, Sarah busied herself in the living room, trying to pull her thoughts together. She couldn't shake the feeling that the storm mirrored their internal struggle. If they didn't find a way to stand united, would they crumble like the branches outside? With a few quick strokes, she arranged the cushions, layering them in a way that felt comforting. It was a small act but one that breathed familiarity back into the space. She glanced at the photos on the mantel. The faces smiling back at her seemed to urge her forward. Tom! She called out, her voice barely carrying over the howling wind. You there? He emerged from the shadows, looking slightly more at ease. Yeah, the generator's on. We should have lights again soon, he said, taking a moment to gauge her mood. What's going on in here? Just trying to make things cozy. I thought, well, we could light a few candles to chase away the dark. She looked around, concern etched on her face. It's kinda scary out there. Tom took a deep breath. Despite the storm's ominous howl, he felt a surge of warmth building inside. That's a great idea. Let us make it a night to remember, right? We can share stories by candlelight. As she started placing candles on the table, something shifted. The flickering flames filled the air with a soft glow, casting a sense of calm. Sarah's voice was softer now, almost shy. What would you think if we invited some friends over once the storm's done? Just to break bread together? Tom's heart twisted at the thought, but it wasn't the thought of others that gave him pause. It was the image of a community, of laughter and coming together, just as Sarah had been doing with the renovations. I think that could be good. Really good. As they lit the last candle together, the warmth between them grew. Then, without warning, the house shuddered with the force of wind and a loud crash echoed once more, sending a shiver down their spines. With their hearts pounding, Tom and Sarah exchanged looks of disbelief. What now? He whispered, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. Let us check. Sarah replied, her resolve hardening. The moment of choice hung heavy. Would they retreat back to the safety of memories, or face whatever lay outside together? Together? Tom glanced at Sarah, his eyes pleading for reassurance. Whatever it is, we'll tackle it as a team. Together, she confirmed, steeling herself. With trepidation, they moved toward the door. The storm raged on, but within their grasp lay the possibility of newfound strength. What awaited them outside the chaos of falling branches, or the first hint of dawn breaking through the dark? The tension mounting, they stepped outside, bracing themselves as the world unfolded before them. The wind howled like a wild animal, tearing through the trees beyond their home. Tom and Sarah stepped onto the porch, clinging to each other as the icy gusts swept past. The moon shone weakly through the jagged clouds, casting an eerie glow across the yard. It felt like stepping into the eye of a storm, a swell of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Look, Sarah shouted, pointing to a large branch that had toppled across the front path. It lay there, menacing like an unforgiving barrier. Tom's heart sank. I should have known that tree was weak. We talked about it last summer, he replied, his gaze etched with guilt. Memories of their discussions echoed in his mind. He often brushed away the tasks that felt overwhelming. But this wasn't the time for regret. Let us clear it away just like we talked about. He squared his shoulders, determination flickering in his chest. They stepped into the raw, bitter cold, taking small steps over the snow-dusted ground. Tom grabbed a sturdy branch, using it to push the fallen one aside. Sarah joined him, her hands trembling not just from the chill, but from unfiltered anxiety. We have to be careful, she cautioned just as a gust of wind howled louder, rattling the trees. We're okay, he assured her, though his own heart raced. If we stay focused, we can manage this. With every shove, each branch moved aside created not just a clearer path but a sense of purpose. The storm felt less about despair now, it became a challenge they would tackle together. They picked up their pace, moving in sync, their breaths visible in the cold air, mixing with their laughter, a surprise to them both. As they worked, small wonders emerged amidst the wreckage, a bit of greenery that clung to life. A bird's nest nestled safely atop a lower branch, swaying slightly. Life finds a way, doesn't it? Sarah mused, sensing the hopefulness in trees still standing. Yeah, like us, Tom replied, a light returning to his eyes. He looked at her, really looked. After everything. This is a sign, isn't it? Maybe, she whispered, the weight of ambiguity still lingering over them. But we've got to remember. It's together that we strengthen each other. Just then, a loud crack broke the stillness, a fissure in the air that made them both freeze. Something large was falling. Watch out! Tom yelled, yanking Sarah back as a sizable branch broke free from the tree, crashing to the ground where they had just stood. The sound echoed like thunder, leaving a crisp silence in its wake. Are you okay? He asked, searching her face for signs of fear or shock. I think so, she said, voice shaky yet steady. I feel like we're fighting against something bigger than us. That's the storm talking, he replied, squeezing her hand. Once it passes, we can start fresh. Just like that little bit of greenery we saw. With renewed resolve, they returned to clearing the path. But now the air felt electric with possibility instead of fear. Maybe they could foster their own new growth together, rebuilding from the wreckage not just of the branches, but of their past as well. Then, just as they finished clearing the path, the storm's wind started to slacken. In that fleeting moment, a fragile silence set in, a truce in the chaos. Let us go inside, Sarah suggested, her breath visible in the now gentle breeze. We can start thinking about what comes next, you know? Tom nodded, hope ignited in his chest. But as they turned to the door, an ominous sound from down the street caught their attention, a crashing metal sound that sent another shiver down their spines. What now? Tom mumbled, unease creeping back in. Before they could react, a flash of light broke the darkness, illuminating something beyond the trees. With hearts racing, they exchanged worried glances. What awaited them in the aftermath of the storm? Let us find out, Sarah urged, determination surging as they stepped away from the porch again, ready to confront whatever mystery lay just ahead. As they stepped off the porch, the icy ground crunched under their feet. Tom's heart pounded in his chest while the eerie silence that had fallen around them was punctuated by the distant metallic noise. He held Sarah's hand tightly, the warmth of her grip giving him courage. They moved carefully down the path, hearts beating out a staccato rhythm against the backdrop of stillness. What do you think it was? Tom asked, straining to hear above the whistling wind. I don't know, sounds like something big, Sarah replied, her voice wavering slightly. Maybe a tree fell onto a car? Let us just be careful, Tom reminded her, stealing glances at the jagged shapes of trees. Each branch seemed to sway as if warning them to stay alert. They rounded the corner of their house, and the flickering light became less elusive. A scene unfolded before them that made them both freeze in their tracks. A neighbor's car lay crumpled against a light pole, the metal folded like paper. The air filled with an uneasy charge, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Jack, she whispered, recalling the neighbor who often borrowed tools from Tom. Her stomach clenched. Jack was in there. Tom tasted the fear in the back of his throat as they moved closer, dread pooling in his stomach. They could now see a small crowd gathered around the car, faces illuminated by the emergency lights flashing around it. Let us go talk to them, he insisted, pulling Sarah along even as she hesitated. The urgency in his voice pushed aside the instinct of fear. Maybe we shouldn't, she started, but the look in his eyes silenced her. They approached the group, and as Tom scanned the crowd, he spotted Jack. He was standing on the edge, his face pale, hands trembling slightly at his sides. Relief washed over him, but it was fleeting. Jack, what happened? Jack looked at Tom, his eyes wide, reflecting both shock and despair. I was driving. And the storm, it came out of nowhere. I lost control, hit the pole. It's not even my car. His voice trailed off, the weight of the incident pressing down on the air. Is anyone hurt? Tom asked, urgency stealing his breath. No, no one else. I was alone inside, Jack replied, shaking his head. I'm so lucky. Sarah stepped forward, her voice softer. You could have been seriously injured, Jack. You need to take a moment and breathe. Tom felt Sarah's heartbeat calm as she spoke. She always had a way of grounding people. Jack nodded slowly, an invisible weight starting to lift slightly as he absorbed her kindness. But just then, a startling voice broke through the murmurs. This is getting out of hand. We need to tell other neighbors to stay inside. It was Mrs. Anderson, her eyes wide, scanning the street and pointing toward other houses. Tom felt a chill creep back into his spine. Mrs. Anderson, wait, he called, realization hitting him. We're all in this together. If we stick together. Before he could finish, the wind picked up again, the howl roaring like a wild animal reborn. They all turned their gazes back to the chaos just as the sky lit up once more, flashes of light spiraling through dark clouds overhead. What now? Sarah murmured, fear creeping back into her voice. We have to find shelter, Tom urged. We can't stay out here. We need to protect each other. But as they began to move back towards their homes, another sound echoed through the night like a deep rumble, followed by a crack that resonated in the very ground. Tom looked at Sarah, dread creeping back. What was that? In the blink of an eye, the air changed, thickening with tension. The darkness felt alive, teetering on the brink of something unknown. Whatever it is, we need to stick together, he said firmly, unknowingly echoing Sarah's earlier words. Let us go back and see if we can help. As they turned, the world around them erupted in a cacophony once more, sending their hearts racing and drawing them deeper into a night filled with uncertainty. And just as they found themselves at the center of the chaos, a form emerged from the shadows, bringing forth the last breaths of the storm, a figure they didn't expect to see. Tom! Sarah! It called, its voice chilling them to the core. You need to come with me right now. Who or what was waiting just beyond the wind? Tom and Sarah exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts drumming in sync with the mounting tension. The figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the flickering light. Ben, their former high school friend who seemed to have dropped off the map after graduation. His eyes were wild, darting around as if something sinister were creeping closer. Ben. Tom called, the name catching in his throat. What's going on? Without answering, Ben grabbed Sarah by the wrist, pulling her toward the shelter of a nearby porch. We don't have time to explain. Just follow me. I'm not sure about this. Sarah hesitated, but Tom felt the urgency in Ben's grip. He sensed something was terribly wrong. Listen, we need to move now. The storm is just the beginning. Ben insisted, glancing over his shoulder. His words hung heavy in the air like an impending storm cloud. What do you mean? Tom asked, his mind racing. Was there more happening than just a car accident? The darkness felt thicker, as if it were concealing secrets, trepidation gnawing at his insides. Just come on. Ben pulled away from the group, dragging Sarah along as Tom stumbled after them. We're not safe here. The wind howled, almost mocking their attempts to stay calm. Twigs snapped underfoot like bones breaking. People yelled in the distance, but Tom's focus narrowed on Ben. There was something in his eyes, panic mixed with urgency, that made Tom's heart race even faster. Finally, they reached an old shed behind the Andersons' house. Tom shot a look back at the crowd. Jack stood pale and shaken, surrounded by others, cluster of worry etching deep lines onto their faces. He felt a pang of guilt pulling away, but the fear creeping through the night was suffocating. Inside, Ben ordered. They crowded into the shed, not waiting to see who might follow. The darkness was alive with shadows, threatening and uncertain. What's going on out there, Ben? Tom asked, trying to catch his breath. You need to tell us. Ben leaned against the wall, his chest heaving, and rubbed his forehead, searching for the right words. I was driving home when I saw it. He took a stuttering breath. The storm had changed. It was like something out of a nightmare. The wind picked up, and I swear I saw faces in the clouds. Angry faces. He shivered, heat in his cheeks fading in the chill of the shed. That's insane, Sarah said, her voice wavering. You can't be serious. I know it sounds crazy, but I saw it. I thought I was losing it. But when I heard the calls, a deep rumble like thunder, then screaming. Ben's voice cracked, and the weight of his words felt like stones pressing on their hearts. A sharp crack echoed like thunder, and the shed trembled. The lights from the crowd flickered faintly, as if they were losing power. Panic exploded within Tom. They needed to unite. Total chaos would break them apart. What do we do then? He asked, his voice low but steady. We have to help the others. Our best option is to wait for help, Ben whispered, fear washing back across his face. If we leave now, we might not make it. This storm, it wants something. I can't just sit here while everyone else is. Another crash sliced through the air, and the ground tremored. Tom! Sarah exclaimed, clutching tight to his arm. But thoughts of leaving suddenly felt more overwhelming than ever. They had to do something. Just then, a momentarily glimpse of orange light burst through the cracks in the shed. Ben's eyes widened, panic amplifying. What is that? Tom's heart raced, trying to decipher this sudden twist. Whatever is happening out there, it's coming for us. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. There was no more time for fear. As they grasped hands in solidarity, a shocking realization flooded him. The storm was only the beginning of their fight. But as they huddled together, a knocking sounded at the door, echoing through the darkness. Let us in, came the frantic voices of their neighbors, breaths heavy with panic. Did they let them in and risk being overwhelmed? Or did they stay hidden in their sanctuary? Whatever choice they made would change everything. The knocking persisted, urgent and frantic, a desperate call to action. Tom's heart pounded in his chest as he exchanged a quick glance with Sarah and Ben. Fear was etched on their faces, and the weight of the decision pressed down on him like the storm outside. Should we let them in? Sarah whispered, her voice shaking slightly. What if it's too dangerous? We can't just leave them out there, Tom argued, urgency fueled by the distant cries. Each knocking sound felt heavier, a reminder of those beyond the shed's walls who were trapped in an unseen nightmare. Tom, think about it. Ben interrupted, stepping closer. What if they're bringing whatever that is with them? You saw the light, it could be pulling them in. Another crash reverberated through the air, and Tom felt the ground quiver underfoot. He looked toward the door where shadows danced just outside. The voices grew louder, frantic pleas echoing inside him. Was he really going to leave people out there, possibly to meet a fate they couldn't even imagine? "Let us in, please," a voice called. It was Mrs. Anderson, her usual cheerful tone now laced with panic. Tom's resolve faltered. The sound of vulnerability in her voice shattered his hesitation. He moved closer to the door, hands trembling. "We have to do something, Tom, wait." Ben instinctively reached for him, but the sound of another crash, this time even closer, made the urgency suffocating. In that moment he made his choice. "If we keep hiding, we'll lose everyone we care about," he said, determination rising. "We can't let fear control us. We need to help." He shoved the door open, the creak echoing through the shed as a wave of wind rushed in like an angry spirit. Shadows spilled over the threshold, and two familiar figures stumbled inside, Mrs. Anderson and her husband, their faces pale and eyes wide with terror. "We thought we'd never find you," Mrs. Anderson exclaimed, relief evident yet mingled with fear. "The storm, it's out for blood. People are captured in the wind." "What do you mean?" Tom asked, breath hitching at her words. "It's like a vortex," Mr. Anderson chimed in, his voice gravelly. "People are being pulled in," as if a deafening roar interrupted him, sending a chill down everyone's spine. The light from the outside flickered ominously, casting strange shapes across the shed's walls. The winds howled louder, drowning out their thoughts, tightening the atmosphere around them. "Something is coming," Ben whispered, eyes darting toward the door. "We need to barricade it." But before they could react, the door slammed shut behind the Andersons, shaking the building as a bright flash illuminated the room. In that instant it felt as if time stilled. Tom squinted into the sudden brightness, watching shadows dance behind the thin wooden walls. The faces he thought he'd seen in the sky were now mere whispers, slowly drifting closer, threatening to engulf them in darkness. Then, as abruptly as it had come, the light dimmed, the room falling back into shadows. Fear gripped them like a vice, but within the pulse of darkness, Tom sensed something else, a force stirring, awakening deep inside him. "Now what?" Sarah asked, her voice a mere thread. The question lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Suddenly another thundering knock echoed, more forceful this time. "Help!" cried a voice that didn't belong to anyone they recognized. Tom felt the collective breath of the group hitch. He knew they couldn't ignore it. They had already come so far, faced so many unknowns together. But stepping into the unknown again felt different this time, more daunting. "Are we really going to open that door again?" Ben questioned, his voice trembling. And with that question echoed in the air, Tom realized some choices would lead them to salvation, and others toward unthinkable fate. As adrenaline surged through him, he closed his eyes for a brief moment. Was it worth the risk? Would they turn back? Or would they choose to confront whatever stood on the other side? The answer was clear, but the fear of the unknown lingered deeply in his gut. "Let us show them what we're made of," Tom said finally, taking a step toward the door. And with that, the door rattled again, this time seemingly alive, ready to reveal the darkness beyond. The door rattled again, a tremor that resonated through Tom's bones. The urgency in the air grew palpable as he faced the possibility of another unknown waiting just outside. "What if it's someone we can't help?" Sarah's voice wavered, fear etching deeper lines into her face. But Tom felt a fire inside him, one that overshadowed the dread. "No more hiding. Whatever we face it together," he urged, his gaze shifting to each of his friends. Ben stared at the door and then back at Tom, doubt flickering in his eyes. Yet Tom's conviction seemed to bridge the chasm of uncertainty that loomed between them. With a deep breath, Tom grasped the cold handle and turned it slowly. The door creaked ominously, echoing through the shed as a gust of wind rushed in, whipping through their hair and chilling their skin. Shadows danced wildly, and he caught a glimpse of the swirling darkness just outside, thick and menacing. "Stay close," he commanded, bracing himself for whatever chaos awaited. The knocking had ceased, replaced by a tense silence that felt like the eye of a storm. As the door finally swung open, a figure stumbled through the threshold. It was a boy, no older than 15. His face was streaked with dirt and tears, eyes wild with terror. "They're coming. You have to help us," he gasped, desperation etched into every feature. Tom's heart sank. Who? Who is coming? The wraiths. They're taking everyone. His voice cracked, a haunting tone that filled Tom with dread. They'll take you too if you don't leave now. Wraiths? Sarah echoed, instinctively stepping back. What are you talking about? They're not just shadows. They want people. They're hunting. I saw them take my brother. The boy's breathing quickened, panic building as he spoke. They're drawn to the sound, to the fear. You have to be quiet. Please, you have to help us escape. A cold shiver ran down Tom's spine. Did they really have a choice? The thought of remaining hidden, of living in fear, clashed with his urge to protect others. In that moment, it wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Where did you see them? He asked, urgency pushing through the fear. By the old Miller farm. The boy's gaze darted toward the door again. As if he could see the wraiths swirling beyond, hunger in their silent presence. They're everywhere. Tom turned to Ben and Sarah. We can't leave him, this is our chance to help, to fight back. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Ben's face paled, but he nodded slowly. Okay, let us do this together. Together, Sarah echoed, determination shining through her fear. But just as they shared that moment of solidarity, a low growl echoed through the air, sending nails of fear into their hearts. The shadows that danced just outside the door thickened, curling closer like tendrils seeking to ensnare them. The boy's eyes widened in fear as he stepped back. They're here. Please, you must be quiet. A sense of resolve settled over Tom. They wouldn't let whoever or whatever was out there control them. With gathered strength, he pushed forward. Then we'll face them. We'll fight together. As he stepped out into the darkness, a new wave of determination washed over him. But just then, the shadows shifted and several figures emerged, their features indistinguishable in the murky light. An array of lost faces and hollow eyes. Get back! Tom shouted, heart racing. The boy clutched Tom's arm, fear coursing through him. If they see us, the wraiths began advancing, a whispers of despair trailing in their wake, drawing closer like a black tide. And in that dire moment of confrontation, every instinct screamed at Tom, was this truly the fight they had chosen? But as the darkness loomed, they could either sink into terror, or rise together. Hold on tight! Tom yelled, gripping the boy's shoulder, ready to push into the chaos. With barely a breath, he lunged forward, heart pounding ferociously against the onslaught of shadows closing in. Did their bond have the power to repel the darkness? Would they find a way to emerge from this nightmare? Or would they succumb to the very fear they had fought so hard to shake off? The wraiths moved like a storm, shadows swirling and slipping through the air. Tom felt the weight of their presence crushing down, suffocating. He glanced back at Ben and Sarah, their faces pale but resolute. The boy clutched his arm, trembling but steadied by Tom's grip. Stay close, he urged again, leading the way into the gloom. The shed's light faded behind them, leaving only the thin glimmer of moonlight to guide their path. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground itself was conspiring against them. Where do we go? Ben whispered. The fear in his eyes mirrored Tom's, but determination flickered there too. Towards the Miller farm, Tom replied, his voice steady. That's where the boy saw them. What if they're waiting for us? Sarah's voice trembled, and the reality washed over them. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a trap. They might be, the boy interjected, his face pale but fierce. But it's our only chance. If we can reach my sister, she might know how to fight them. With a quick nod, Tom started forward again. They pressed on, hearts heavy with each sound echoing in the night, distant howls and the whispers of the wraiths, the very air thrumming with malevolence. Every few moments Tom glanced back. He could see the shadows creeping closer, their hollow eyes yearning for despair. It felt like a cruel game, a dance of desperation, and Tom refused to let fear win. Remember what we talked about, he reminded them. Together we're stronger. But as they neared the entrance of the abandoned Miller farm, an inexplicable chill prickled at the back of Tom's neck. The oppressive darkness seemed to pulse with its own life, and the whispers turned into anguished wails, clawing at their sanity. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, but he could see her fighting against the urge to turn back. Stay focused, he snapped, not wanting to show his own wavering resolve. Suddenly, a A flicker of light shone from the remnants of the farmhouse. Tom felt a rush of hope. Maybe they weren't too late. Maybe there was still someone alive. Over there. He pointed. They hurried toward the house, every fiber of Tom's being screaming to run faster. The light flickered again, but the air felt charged, heavy with something dark and unseen. As they entered the yard, the whispers turned into shrieks, and the air crackled with intensity. The wraiths surged forward, their forms shifting and twisting, faces contorted in silent screams. "Run!" Tom shouted. His heart raced as they sprinted towards the door. The boy stumbled and Tom instinctively reached back, grabbing his arm just in time. But as he turned, he saw them hordes of wraiths descending, their fingers reaching, grasping for his friends. "Inside! Now!" he yelled, pushing the boy ahead. Sarah and Ben rushed in right after, slamming the door behind them. The farmhouse was dim, the air thick with dust and despair. Tom turned breathless. "We're safe for now." But as they looked around, the shimmering light in the corner began to fade, and shadows stretched across the room like dark fingers. "Where's your sister?" Tom asked the boy, panic rising. "I don't know, she was supposed to be here," he replied, his voice cracking. Maybe she's in the cellar." Before anyone could respond, the wraiths began battering against the door, their relentless hunger echoing through the fragile wood. Tom's heart raced as he glanced at his friends, the urgency in their eyes matching his own. "We have to find her now. We can't let them in." But before he finished, a different sound emerged from the darkest corner of the room, a low, haunting laughter that sent shivers racing down Tom's spine. "Get ready," he said, heart pounding harder than ever. Were they prepared for whatever awaited them in the shadows? Or had they just stumbled into the wraith's true lair? A dangerous confrontation loomed, and not everyone would make it out alive. With the relentless pounding on the door echoing through the air, Tom felt dread settle heavily in his chest. The laughter sliced through the tension, chilling him to the bone. "We have to move now," he shouted, urgency coursing through him. The boy tugged at Tom's arm, panic spearing through his wide eyes. "We need to find my sister. She knows how to fight them. Lead the way." "We'll follow you," Ben said, his breath quickening as the sound of the wraiths intensified. The boy nodded, scrambling toward a narrow staircase that spiraled down into the shadows of the cellar. "This way." Tom, Sarah, and Ben fell in step behind him, the air around them thick with apprehension. With every creak of the wooden stairs, every whisper from above, it felt like the darkness was closing in. But the desire to protect outweighed the fear. They couldn't let anyone else be lost. "Stay close," Tom warned, gripping the boy's arm gently, glancing back toward the door that felt like the last barrier against the writhing wraiths. Each step deeper into the cellar felt heavier than the last, yet a sliver of hope pulsed within him. Maybe they could find a way to fight back. As they reached the bottom, the dimness enveloped them. A flicker of light caught Tom's eye. A makeshift lantern hanging by a rusty nail flickered weakly. "Is your sister down here?" he whispered to the boy, who nodded, his fear replaced with determination. "Yes, in the far corner." The boy led the way, each step forward easing the knot of fear in Tom's gut just a little bit more. They moved cautiously through the shadowy space, their eyes adjusting to the dimness. Just then, flickers of movement caught their attention. A figure was huddled in the corner, whispering fervently. "Ellie?" the boy called out. The girl turned, wide-eyed and disheveled. Relief washed over her face. "I thought you were lost." She stood, revealing a worn old book in her hands. "What's that?" Sarah asked, heart racing. "It's a journal. It tells how to fend off the wraiths," she said, breathing heavily. "But we need to." A deafening crash shook the cellar. The door had been breached. Tom felt a cold wave of terror wrap around him. "We have to act now." "But the words. They need to be spoken in the right order," Ellie cried, looking desperately at her brother. "We can't do it if they're here." "Then we'll give you time," Tom said, adrenaline pushing him forward. "Sarah and I will hold them off." "Are you crazy?" Ben exclaimed, shock evident on his face. Tom was already moving towards the door, heart pounding harder than ever, determined. "Someone has to buy you time. Just get ready." "Tom, please," Sarah begged, fear flashing in her eyes. But he felt a firm resolve. They'd come too far to lose again. "Go now." he shouted, pushing Sarah and Ben toward the shadows with one final look. He steeled himself, ready for the oncoming storm. A flicker of light flickered in the back of his mind, his love for them fueling his fight. The wraiths surged through the door, dark forms twisting into the cellar. Tom felt the weight of their whispers, echoing sinister cries that clawed at his sanity. "Come on," he yelled, grabbing a nearby broom and swinging it at the encroaching shadows, feeling a hint of defiance rise within him. "Don't let them in." Ben joined, bringing a rusting shovel down hard against one of the figures, sending it spiraling back into darkness. Tom's heart raced, the moment stretching endlessly. He could see Sarah and Ben scrambling back as Ellie shouted words from the journal, the voice summoning something deeper. "Stay close," Tom yelled, clenching his fists against the wraiths looming ahead. They swirled around him, gnashing and hissing, but he stood firm, refusing to budge. The shadows wailed in fury. The very air crackled with unseen energy. For every attack Tom countered. With fear intertwined with anger and a desperate hope for the future, he fought back against the darkness, refusing to give in. "Now!" Ellie shouted, her voice ringing through the chaos. Tom's heart surged with courage, knowing his friends were rallying behind him. He caught a glimpse of fear in their eyes, but something else bloomed, an undeniable strength born of their bond. As they rallied together, light began to seep through the cracks of the cellar, a warmth breaking in from the shadowy depths. The wraiths screeched, their forms flickering, haunted by the shining light erupting from the journal. "Keep going," Ben shouted, a fierce determination igniting the air. "Don't look back," Sarah shouted, her voice high above the din as they plunged toward the heart of the light emanating from Ellie's journal. In that defining moment, the room flooded with radiant energy, illuminating the darkness and shattering the wraith's hold on their hearts. Together they stood, refusing to back down. The whispers of fear diminished, replaced by the resolute joy of standing together, hand in hand. With a final explosion that sent shockwaves through the air around them, the darkness shrieked and evaporated, replaced by warmth and light. The shadows dissolved, and with them the fears that had once threatened to consume their shared existence. Panting, they stood together, the world now breathing softly around them. The storm overhead began to fade, creeping clouds parting to reveal the twinkling of stars. They clung to one another, feeling the love that held them together. Tom's heart swelled, gratitude rushing through him as he looked around at his friends. "It's over," he whispered, relief flooding his body. Together, Sarah echoed knowingly, a radiant smile breaking across her face, illuminating the remnants of darkness, and as they stepped out into the aftermath of the storm, its fury fading behind them, hope kindled anew in their hearts. Whatever lay ahead, they knew they would face it as one, the darkness chased away by the light of a new beginning. All of it born from love, loss, and the unyielding strength of a shared journey. Now is the time to stand with us. Subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep us thriving. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans know the importance of supporting us through these actions.